Coming up on Network Africa, Guinea's military junta begins 4 days of talks in an effort to build a consensus on the future of the country. 6 officers killed in an ambush on a Burkina Faso military convoy. Plus, the UN High Commission for Human Rights warns that the Tigrayan conflict risks spilling over to the whole Horn of Africa. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in Guinea, where the military junta who took over power last week have announced the gradual reopening of the country's borders. Some of the borders had been closed since last week's coup and others for months beforehand. The Senegal, Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau borders were ordered closed by President Alpha Condé back in September 2020 for security reasons before the 18th October presidential election. Mr. Condé also denounced attempts to destabilize Guinea by using the territory of neighboring countries. Now, this closure caused diplomatic tension given the significant movement of people and goods in the region. Well, the border with Sierra Leone is scheduled to now reopen on Wednesday. The one with Liberia is expected to reopen on Thursday. Côte d'Ivoire's on Friday, Mali's on Saturday, and Guinea-Bissau's on Monday, and Senegal next week, Friday. In the meantime, Guinea's military junta is starting to hold a 4-day discussion with representatives of the people in what it says is an effort to build a consensus on the future of the country. The West African regional body ECOWAS and the African Union had suspended the country following the military takeover a week ago. Now, with the threat of economic sanctions looming, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya and other coup leaders are under increasing diplomatic pressure. Well, over the next 4 days, they'll be holding meetings with people from all walks of life. First, there will be religious and political leaders, and then diplomats and civil society groups meeting with them. Among the others invited are business leaders, including bosses of mining companies and the trade unions. Well, let's get more discussions on this. Joining us now on the program is an African Affairs analyst, Dr. Okwe Okpala. Thank you so much for speaking to us on the program. Let's begin with what are your thoughts on the latest development in Guinea, especially, the discussions called for by the junta?
Well, I think the junta realizes that they are facing immense international pressure because of the mood of international community against coups and against undemocratic governments. So they are trying to popularize themselves. They're trying to galvanize support. However, I think in trying to ward off or in trying to work against this opposition, international opposition, they are also ticking the right boxes, because they are trying to negotiate, they are trying to discuss with leaders, with important segments of the society, and to build consensus. And they have also taken certain actions that will popularize them and make them more acceptable to ordinary people in Guinea, like releasing the detainees, the political detainees, and some opening the borders. Some of these measures that are popular, although they may not completely be sincere, but there are things they are doing to win the people and the support of the people internally, and also to win international support. So far it's expected that they will do it. They are doing it in order to galvanize support and in order to consolidate their hold on power.
Well, with what you just said, the people they're trying to, win the people over, and also the international community. Why do you think this is necessary for them, and to also meet these groups? What do you think is their strategy?
Well, I think their strategy is, one, let me credit them with some noble intentions. They they are projected that, look, I mean, of course, every coup plotter will say we are doing it because for the people, we are doing it for the good of the country. And coming against a government that has become very unpopular and that have done a lot to take away most of what the people like, the rights of the people, the rights to freedom, the right to a political association, and they now see it as a way of coming to show that, look, well, although we are military government, we are not going to be brutal. We are not going to rule by decrees. I mean, we are going to feel the pulse of the people. We are going to do what the people like. And they are also trying to build consensus, trying to form an inclusive government. And so there is necessary for them, because their hold to power is still fragile, irrespective of the fact that where they are the de facto rulers, they have not formed government, and their hold to power is very fragile. They can only rule and hold on strictly to power if they can get buy-in from the ordinary people. So some of these populist measures they are taking is a way of getting the people on their side so that they are to stabilize their regime, and then maybe they may mean well. And maybe if they mean well, they will hand over they will conduct elections. But we know that most military government always start like this. They want to they ride on popular agitation against an unpopular government, and then sometimes they come up to even be worse than the government they displaced.
Well, let's talk now about the deposed President Alpha Condé. We know the African Union and ECOWAS have been calling for his release. What do you think, the military leaders have in store for him?
Well, I doubt, yes, everybody will want a quick return to democracy. Everybody will want, and there's huge pressure for Condé to be released. However, I don't see that happening very soon. Like I said earlier, the government will need to stabilize itself. They are torn between two options. One, please the international community and release the former president. But when you do that, there is risk, because the former president understands power. He has his supporters. And if he comes outside, and especially if he's in Guinea, he can galvanize support, and that can topple the government that is here trying to stabilize. So they will weigh this in. So in as much as they want to do that to please international community, they also don't want a quick reverse of what they have so far achieved in quotes. I mean, the coup that has happened, they want to at least, even if they want to go, they will go in their own terms, or at least not to appear obvious that they were pushed out. So I think their strategy may be to hold on to him, maybe stabilize the government, and then release him when they are sure he can no longer, after they have gotten the buy-in from the people and the government have been stabilized, then they will know that even if he is on the street, he will no longer be in position to cause any major harm to the government.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Dr. Okwe Okpala, African Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your thoughts.
You're always welcome. Thank you.
Moving on to other stories now. An ambush on a Burkina Faso military convoy escorting fuel tankers from a gold mine near the border with Niger has left 6 officers dead. Officials say 7 people have also been wounded in what the regional government in eastern Burkina Faso say is an attack by suspected jihadists. Now, 2 years ago, 39 people were killed when a convoy of vehicles from the same mine was targeted. That incident shut down production for almost a year. Since 2015, attacks in the country by groups linked to the Islamic State group and Al-Qaeda have killed more than 1,500 people and forced more than 1 million people from their homes. The UN Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, is in South Sudan in an effort to revive the stagnating peace process and to express the commitment of the United Nations in supporting the people of the country as they transition from war to peace, recovery and development. He's also met with South Sudan's President Salva Kiir to discuss the need to urgently progress the peace process.
The President shared ideas on issues related to peace implementation, as well as to the issues of Abyei, the future of UNISPA forces in Abyei, and I think the change of forces, and I think there was a meeting of minds between the President representing the government of the Republic of South Sudan and the United Nations team.
As far as the UN is concerned, we can certainly help in trying to support the armed forces here in their efforts to make sure that certain guarantees and certain benchmarks can be achieved. I'm thinking in particular of everything that has to do with managing weapons and ammunition. I know that it is seen by members of the Security Council as an important element in this. But again, I repeat that this is very much the issue of the arms embargo is very much in the hands of the Security Council.
Well, the United Nations says thousands of people who have been displaced in South Sudan's western equatorial state are suffering, many of them women and children. Some 30 kilometers from Tambura in the state, patrolling UN peacekeepers speak of the devastation caused by violent conflict in the area.
The United Nations says immediate action is needed to deter violence and save lives in Tambura, South Sudan. The ongoing conflict in the area has forced more than 40,000 people to flee their homes. Patrolling UN peacekeepers see the devastation caused by violent conflict in the area. Thousands of people who've been displaced are suffering. There are numerous burnt-down houses, a looted health clinic, and dying animals. Most displaced persons in the western Equatoria are currently living without knowing what tomorrow might or might not bring.
Poverty and killings are having a terrible impact. We are very vulnerable right now because we have no access to medication and food. We are doing any kind of casual work we can find to survive.
Nicholas Hayson, UN Special Representative of the Secretary General in South Sudan, says the humanitarian situation is dire, both where the violence is taking place and in locations where displaced people are seeking shelter.
I think it's critical that both local leaders and national leaders engage in trying to mitigate the tensions and the violence that we've seen erupt in Tambura. The presence of that violence has long and enduring consequences. It embitters communities, it contributes to the tribal fault lines in the area, it makes reconstruction more difficult. But directly and immediately, it's had a terrible humanitarian consequence. It's led to over 40,000 internally displaced people, and it is definitely complicating our capacity to reach out to those communities and provide them with access to humanitarian services and goods. We have already placed a temporary operating base in the middle of Tambura village, but given the size and scale of the men under arms in the region, that is simply not enough without the intervention of local and national leaders.
In the meantime, the UN peacekeeping mission says it remains committed to doing its best to assist the government in protecting civilians in the conflict-ridden area.
The government always has the first responsibility, and it's for that reason that we always call first on the government to intervene. But having said that, we have peacekeeping assets, and we attempt wherever we can to make up for the shortfall or absence of national security forces in the area, but more essentially to provide as it were, a flag around which IDPs can gather and feel some protection and safety.
UN Peacekeeping Mission's Gender Affairs Unit is concerned about the widespread suffering in and around Tambura, calling on the leaders to be more active.
I'm calling for the leadership, the key leadership of this country, the key leadership of the state, the stakeholders, the international community, to give pressure for this senseless conflict to stop, so that women go back to their normal situation and assurance that they are protected from sexual gender-based violence, which cannot be reported in this situation.
In an attempt to stop the violence and bring peace, the government of South Sudan has sent a high-level delegation to Tambura. The conflict there has forced more than 40,000 people to flee their homes. Some of them are sheltering nearby, others have made their way to neighboring villages or traveled farther away.
Still to come on the program. A former lieutenant of the Rwandan army gunned down in Mozambique after complaints of a plot to kill him. More details after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is warning that the conflict in Ethiopia risks spilling over to the whole Horn of Africa. While updating the UN Human Rights Council on the human rights situation in the Tigray region, Ms. Bachelet says a highly awaited joint investigation into abuses was unable to deploy to the site one of its deadliest attacks, the alleged massacre of several hundred people in the holy city of Axum. She says the deployments to the eastern and central Tigray region, where witnesses have accused Ethiopian and Eritrean forces of some of the worst abuses of the 10-month war, could not proceed.
From my last update to the Council to date, allegations of human rights violations have continued to implicate government forces and its allies. We have received disturbing reports that local fishermen found dozens of bodies floating along the river crossing between Western Tigray and Sudan in July. There are continued reports of large-scale arbitrary detentions of ethnic Tigrayan civilians in unofficial sites in Western Tigray. Reports also suggest that people of Tigrayan ethnicity have been profiled and detained by law enforcement officials on ethnic grounds, with hundreds having reportedly been arrested in recent security sweeps, mostly in Addis Ababa. During the period under review, the Tigrayan forces have allegedly been responsible for attacks on civilians, including indiscriminate killings resulting in nearly 76,500 people displaced in Afar and an estimated 200,000 in Amhara. More than 200 individuals have reportedly been killed in the most recent clashes in these regions, and 88 individuals, including children, have been injured. I also urge the government of Ethiopia to accept the recommendation of the Joint Investigation Report as part of its effort to bring about accountability. I also reiterate my call to the Eritrean government to ensure accountability for alleged widespread human rights violation by their forces in the Tigray region. I reiterate what I told the Council last June. Grievances must be addressed through meaningful peace building and reconciliation efforts to avoid the risk that Ethiopia will be torn apart, with profound implications for the country and the rest of the Horn of Africa.
The British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has been urged to block the appointment of Rwanda's new High Commissioner to London. An American human rights group, the Lantos Foundation, says the new High Commissioner, Johnston Busingye, was involved in the detention of a prominent critic of the Rwandan government. Paul Rusesabagina, who was portrayed in the film Hotel Rwanda, was tricked into returning to the country from exile last year and now faces terrorism charges. Well, the High Commissioner, Mr. Busingye, until recently, the Justice Minister, has admitted the government paid the person who carried out the deception. The Rwandan government insists that Mr. Rusesabagina's arrest complied with international law. Meanwhile, a prominent member of the Rwandan refugee community in Mozambique, who had told the police there was a plot to kill him, has been shot dead. Police say Mr. Karemangingo, who was the treasurer of the Rwandan Refugee Association, was shot 9 times when his car was ambushed on his way home near the Mozambican capital Maputo on Monday. Revocat Karimangingo had been a lieutenant in the Rwandan army that was overthrown in 1994 by forces led by President Paul Kagame. While in Mozambique, the leader of the refugee community said he became a businessman and was not involved in politics. Critics have long accused the Rwandan government of targeting opponents living abroad, but the government has constantly denied the allegation. No one has been arrested so far, and the police say they do not yet have a motive for the killing. Well, back here in Nigeria, a Nollywood filmmaker, Yemi Amodu, is asking the federal government to try to understand the roots of the problems first in its bid to tackle insecurities and terrorism in the country. The filmmaker, whose new movie is themed around communal clashes and kidnapping, told our entertainment news on Channels Television that the foot soldiers in these crimes are usually brainwashed and rarely know the true reasons they are sent to war, and so shouldn't be the main focus if peace must be sustained in the region. He maintains that the real beneficiaries of the crimes are the ones that must be exposed, as seen in his movie, for a lasting solution. Let's take a listen.
When you look at a story like this, or you look at, let me say, it's a caricature of what is happening. When you look at the reality, the real situation, either of the country, of the globe, or wherever this kind of war are, being fought, you will discover that the people that are really fighting the war don't know why they are fighting. They don't know the reason behind the war. What they are made to believe, they are manipulated. In my course of research, so many people have lost their lives unnecessarily. And the people that will manipulate them, they have their own family. They live comfortably. And they send people on an errand that of no return. The problem that we have is that we need to tell the truth to the people that are in charge of curbing this. They are not far from us. They are within us. These manipulators, the cause of our problems are so vivid, it's so clear. So it is necessary for us to begin to come out loud, to speak out, to raise our voice. Yes, there can be an end to it. We can eradicate it. We can stop it. If we are serious, about stopping it. And, in my own little way, that was why I think of this theme. How do I contribute my quota to the well-being of my people, of my society?
Kenyan budget airline Jambo Jet, which is owned by the national carrier Kenyan Airways, is scheduled to launch a new flight to the eastern DRC city of Goma. Kenyan businesses, including its big banks, have been foraying into the DRC due to the vast size of the market and relatively untapped opportunities.
Kenya's first low-cost airline, Jambo Jet, has started a flight service to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in the city of Goma, looking to tap into a projected jump in demand for air travel in Africa.
Currently, when you look at the low-cost carriers, there are no low-cost carriers in the region. So basically, for now, we are the biggest low-cost carrier within the region. So for us, the market is quite big, and we will grow and serve the market and grow within the region. To the point of even setting up hubs within the region. Currently, we are setting our second hub in Mombasa. Nairobi is our main hub. Our second hub is Mombasa. And who knows what Goma brings.
The carrier, which was launched in 2014 and is owned by national airline Kenya Airways, expects Africa to become one of the fastest growing regions for aviation in the world in the next 2 decades, with an average annual expansion of nearly 5%.
You find trade, tourism is big, and you can grow a market. Make it easier for businesses to operate, make it easier for people to move around, make it easier for tourism.
Other Kenyan firms, including its biggest bank, Equity, are also expanding into the Democratic Republic of Congo, a relatively untapped market. The government also welcomes the new transport development.
Jambo Jet a fait un choix judicieux. Jumbo Jet has made a wise choice to serve our population, for which I congratulate him, and I promise him our support and our provincial accompaniment.
And promise them Jumbo Jet will fly into Goma, the capital of North Kivu province, twice a week from its Nairobi hub, before increasing to 4 times a week with time. The carrier operates a fleet of 6 de Havilland-8 400 planes and currently serves 6 local destinations from its Nairobi hub, including popular resort towns along the Kenyan coast. It embarked on an expansion drive 3 years ago to double the number of passengers it carries annually, but some of those plans were delayed by the onset of the pandemic early last year.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.